I'm live. Good morning. What a week. It's tomorrow. I think tomorrow, maybe the next day. We'll see. But we are going live with the all new Have I Been Pwned 2.0. Is that the right word for it? Anyway, that's what I put in the draft blog post. That's what'll come out. I think I'll probably push that out Monday. I'm going to give you some insights into what's in there today. I put a little teaser in the description of this week's video. We do have a merch store. I'm gonna informally launch the merch store at the end of this live stream today for however long that goes. It's kind of in a way it's like, why do we waste so much time on it? Why'd Charlotte waste so much time on it? In a way, it's also very, very cool. So I'll show you that in just a moment. Kicking off formalities. Where's all my windows? In the usual way. Sponsor this week is my number one most prevalent sponsor for many years. Who needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. 1Password. 1Password Extended Access Management, securing every sign-in for every app on every device. I often just go and read the material about what 1Password is and extended access. But given I'm a long-time user of 1Password, I think it's just interesting to sort of see how people use the product. Now, just as I was about to sit down and start this, I was like, what am I going to say about 1Password today? One of the things I think people are maybe missing with a password manager is it's not just about having your passwords on your device so that you can log into things. Now, as I've said before, I have credit cards, bank account statements and things in there. I blogged this morning, I'll talk about them in a moment, about setting the Malaysian government up on Have I Been Pwned. When I need to share secrets with them, I share a 1Password link that you need to access via proving you control the email address that I've locked it down to. So there's all this sort of stuff. But the one that got me yesterday that I thought this is actually a really good example of how cool it is I have a passkey on the account for my telco. So when I log in, I can just do the passkey magic thing, which does automatic login, as well as obviously being something that you have to have access to. A bit of an argument about whether it's proper 2FA or not if you don't have to have a physical key. Anyway, it doesn't matter, you know what passkeys are. And we decided yesterday to set my son up with an eSIM because his physical SIM, every now and then he'd just lose signal, and you'd pop out the SIM tray and you give the SIM card a little rub for good luck and you put it back in and it worked fine. And we're like, I'm pretty sure now you can just get an eSIM instead. But you need to log into the account in order to do this. So I could just put the account for my telco in the shared family vault. He goes in there, the passkey goes across with it, authenticates straight away, gets the eSIM provisions, it's job done. I can then move that back out of the family vault if I don't want him having access to it. The family sharing aspect of this is massive. And if you're not using that, it's check it out. It's very, very cool. So 1Password, who does extended access management, but I've gone off on a tangent about all of the keychain and family syncing stuff. There you go, off script, as always. This here, Stephen, Bruce, Wayne, g'day everyone. Stephen says, is the merch store called Have I Been Merched? Or Merched Has Been Pwned? Well, see, this is why we're doing this semi-privately in this chat rather than just when I put the whole thing up publicly, because they're actually not bad ideas. We'll come back to that. Good morning, Marek, as well. I'll do the merch store right at the end, because apparently that's what you do. You make everyone stick around and you put the good stuff right at the back. So, right, Malaysian government. 40th government that we now have on Have I Been Pwned. What I find tends to happen is a government will reach out for some reason or another. Obviously, something's prompted it, and they'll go, hey, can we get access like the other ones? You go, yeah, sweet. And, I haven't heard from anyone for months. And then they'll go on, and then suddenly there'll be a stream of others that follow pretty quickly. So just looking back at my thread here, it was Gambia. So Gambia reached, I don't know where Gambia found Have I Been Pwned, but they obviously thought it was a good idea. They reached out. So earlier this month, Gambia went on. And then straight off the back of that, it's Isle of Man. And then I had to look up and figure out whether Isle of Man was a country or not. No, they're a British Crown dependency, the Isle of Man. So that qualified. And then as well off the back of that was Malaysia. Now, Malaysia, I think, is particularly cool for a couple of reasons. One, I've been there. That's a nice spot. Petronas Towers is epic. The other thing is that they're the first government in Asia. So in a way, I find that fascinating. In a way, I don't. It's fascinating insofar as there's a massive proportion of the world's population in this one continent, and it's somewhere that I've spent a huge part of my life living as well as traveling. And then I guess the other part, which is a little bit less surprising, is I do find that Have I Been Pwned tends to be very sort of Western Hemisphere orientated. And it's not that I've built it that way. It's just that the UK, the rest of Europe, the USA, Australia, they're just the demographic, I guess, for my audience. They use a lot of the same systems together. We've got a few different Indonesian data breaches, for example, and Have I Been Pwned. And every time I load them, there's a really small crossover of pre-existing accounts. It's just the nature of the way the world is I guess, split apart. But very cool to have a footprint, so to speak, in Asia now. And there are certainly many other parts of Asia that I think would benefit from having some free access to their government things and Have I Been Pwned. So hopefully that will come too. Funky Marcus here, and James. Good morning all. So anyway, that's the first bit, Malaysian government. Now, the next bit, it's going to be all Have I Been Pwned today. Should do another IoT thing sometime. I was speaking about doing home theatre a while ago. That is progressing, and that's a massive, expensive geek out, which we'll do at some point in time. Where did I talk about what I was going to talk about? It's on my tweet thing. So I think the next one here was around the Have I Been Pwned partnerships. And I blogged about this separately to having some private discussions with organizations. And I'll give you the background. So this blog post is titled After the Breach, Finding New Partners with Solutions for Have I Been Pwned Users. After the breach being, it's like, okay, you've been breached, you discovered you've been breached, what now? And when Have I Been Pwned originally started, and again, I didn't take it seriously. I thought, this will be fun. Some friends will use it. And then it escalated. But when it started, it was obviously just an index service. You look it up, you figure out whether you're in a data breach or something. And effectively, what I was doing is saying, hey, you've been in a breach. Now you figure out what you got to do. All I'm doing is being that sort of technical resource to create an index. And what I didn't realize at the time was how useful it would be for the normies. We still call them normies on this podcast live stream. When I write, I call them normal people, because it seems to be in the written form that people get most upset. Anyway, so the normies use it. And data breaches are a more foreign concept to them, understandably, because they're normal people. And I didn't have anything on there about what to do after the breach. And it was, let me see, I linked through the 1Password announcement post, which very coincidentally ties in well with this week's sponsor. So in 2018, 29th of March, 2018, damn, 7 years ago. Jeez, rather a lot has happened since then. Back in 2018, I can't even say we then because it was just me. I ended up partnering with 1Password to put 1Password product placement on Have I Been Pwned. So they're in the transactional emails and they're on the front page and they're on the Pwned password search page. Incidentally, Pwned passwords passed 13 billion queries in 30 days just this week. So that's the, we're 13B, which means I actually need to update the new website because we said something like 12 plus. So partner with 1Password because that was an answer about what do I do now? So you find yourself in a data breach, what do I do now? Well, the thing that we're most focused on at the time is strong, unique passwords. You can only do that reliably with a password manager, so go and get 1Password. And I came up with some rather clunky graphics. Every time I look at the website, which now has like 36 hours probably left to live, every time I look at it, I feel like it's so clunky and old. Talk more about that in a moment. So I came up with 1Password product placement, and that was an actionable thing that people could do that has a real world impact on their security posture, not just in general, but specifically if they did find themselves in a data breach, because now that password is out there, it's circulating all over the web. Every man and his dog's using it to try and break into your account. That's a problem. So 1Password was a great solution. And part of what made the 1Password decision easy, I'm not just saying this because they're a sponsor. I have a long track record of talking about 1Password before that. Part of what made it easy is that I was a user of that service by my own free volition since 2011. I've been using 1Password for 14 years now, believe it or not. I had spent time with the folks there. In fact, I was at LocoMocoSec. I'm quite sure, was that in 2017? Can't remember. Anywho, spent time with the 1Password team, and they're all just like super, super nice people as well. And of course, since then, I've spent a lot more time with them on various things. You know, they have no office. Canadian-based company, no office. Everyone works remotely, which is fascinating. Seems to work really well for them because they're doing well. That's the wild thing. It's like 7 years ago, it was still, I guess, compared to today, a small password manager. And now I'm like watching the Formula One and they're on Max Verstappen's car, which is just nuts. So anyway, partnered with 1Password, made sense, solves that password problem. Now, the thing is, there's a lot of data breaches which either don't have passwords exposed in them or have many other personal attributes exposed in them, which put people at other risks which password managers don't address. Now, the obvious one here, and this is the example I've given in the blog post as well, is identity theft providers. So there are lots of services out there that will help you understand your potential risk from, what's the right way to phrase this? From people impersonating you. I think it's probably the best way to put it. Now, very often I'll sort of say, you know, look, identity theft providers have a valuable role to play, and people go, you know, what's the point? What can they actually do? So I decided to pick an example that I have used myself. And it's a company called TrueU. Now, TrueU is part of the Commonwealth Bank here in Australia. They are our largest bank. Pretty sure they're our number one bank. They're one of the big four banks. Down here in Oz, massive, massive multi-billion-dollar company. They have a ventures arm called X15. Oh, geez, my OBS just disconnected. It was reconnecting. OBS, reconnection successful. I wonder why that happens. Okay, if we scroll back 10 seconds, TrueU is a user of Havobane Pone's enterprise services. And after they came on board using that service, I thought I will go and pay their subscription, which is $4.99 a month, Aussie dollars, which seems pretty reasonable. Where are we? I've got to go back to the TrueU page. Via the App Store, so a little bit of a no-brainer. Was it $4.99? I get infatuated by such small little details. $4.99 each month, Aussie dollars as well. So that is in, let's say in American dollars, less than $3 a month. So that is less than what I just paid. In fact, that's about 2/3 probably of what I just paid for this coffee, because for some reason coffee has become really expensive now. Yeah, as Funky Monk says, which bank? This was like a big advertising campaign in Australia. I don't know if they still do this now, but many years ago, it's like, which bank? The Commonwealth Bank. Anyway, so Commonwealth Bank has this service. Now, I have credit monitoring with another provider that's an incumbent provider. I've had it literally since the 90s because I want to know about stuff like if a loan application is made in my name, if someone puts my details on a company directorship or something like that. So I signed up for TrueU, and of course you get all the Havobane Pone stuff in there, so I can see everything that I have loaded into Havobane Pone flow through to TrueU for my email addresses. But I can also see credit inquiries against my name, and this, to get back to the point of the discussion, is what identity. I keep getting the term wrong. If I say identity theft providers, it sounds like someone who offers to steal identities. What did I call it? Did I say provider? Credit card provider. What is the right term for this class of identity? What do I call it? Identity protection services. That's a better term. There you go. It's been a very long week. Identity protection services like TrueU. Now, here's the example of where it's actually been really useful. Now, I guess to clarify that, it would be really useful if it wasn't me that had triggered these events. But it's really useful to see these events because one day, if it's not me, I'm going to get an early warning. Charlotte decided that we should lose some money on the Melbourne Cup. Now, I've cut to the conclusion, but she didn't put it exactly that way. But the Melbourne Cup is a horse race, happens here in Australia. They say it's the race that stops a nation. Everyone stops and watches the Melbourne Cup. Is it the first Tuesday of November, I believe? It's a massive thing. People basically just get pissed and bet on horses. I don't know if we did the first bit, but we did the last bit. And for that, we needed a sports bet account. And that was weird. Like, she had a sports bet account, but she'd made it under her maiden name, which was easy enough to do. But then when she tried to change her maiden name to her married name, suddenly she lost access to her account because they need to do all sorts of things that you couldn't before because financial industry regulations. So she's like, you go set one up and then we'll lose money under your name instead of lose money under my name. So I set up this sports bet account, and you've got to do identity proof stuff because it's money and because KYC and all the rest of it. And as soon as I do this, now this race is very early in the afternoon on the 5th of November, and I get this TrueU alert at 11:58 in the morning on the 5th of November. And it says, hey, there's been authorized usage of your ID at Sportsbet. Your name, your date of birth, and then a whole bunch of Illion credit header stuff. Now, Illion is what was the right word? They explained it to me when I asked them. Illion essentially provides insights into the way inquiries are made under an identity. So we've got Illion credit header, banking finance segment, telecommunications segment, utilities segment, public records segment. In essence, a whole bunch of information about me being accessed so we can lose money on horses. Now, when I asked them to sort of give me a bit of shape around this, because I said, do you mind if I put this in the blog post? Because I think it explains the value proposition really well. They said, things like the banking finance segment header. This segment includes information that links you to financial institutions such as bank lenders or credit card providers. It helps confirm your financial presence and association with trusted entities. But it can also reveal if your identity is being used across multiple banks fraudulently. So, okay, well, I would actually like to know that. And it goes on and on and on. And a whole bunch of this also then links through to things like directorship records. Because our life is complex and because we do have some businesses, I've got directorship things in stuff I've probably even forgotten about. But as soon as anything changes, I get this alert. And then the other example I gave was when we were in Dublin, seeing the Irish NCSC last month before, recently, 8th of April. There you go, because it is on my TrueU alert. And I wanted to buy some sushi, but I didn't have cash and they wouldn't accept credit card. And I tried to set up a Revolut account, which incidentally didn't work anyway. But they got far enough to do my identity proof because they had my name, my date of birth, and the Illion credit header telecommunications segment. So they had a whole bunch of information about me and I got that alert immediately. And I guess what I'm getting to here is that the sorts of information that I had to provide in order to create credit accounts or create accounts that deal with money is the sort of information that gets regularly exposed in data breaches. And the relevancy of identity protection services on Have I Been Pwned next to 1Password is extraordinarily high, particularly when we're talking about data breaches that don't just impact your email address or your password, but your date of birth and your phone number and your physical address and the other bits of information which are either on their own sufficient to start making credit inquiries or are sufficient to then gather the other pieces of information from other sources and then build up this big picture of you. Now, part of the reason why we're doing this is for years we have had queries and requests from other organizations that wanted to be a partner of Have I Been Pwned. And I guess it's obvious. It's become a really popular service. It's got great brand recognition, great trust. So companies are like, can we please buy some of that? And I've said no to every single one with the caveat that one point in time in the future, we will find a way to get the right entities that we trust and we have the right relationships with, like 1Password, and we will find the right place to put you on the website such that it is not sleazy and it doesn't degrade the overall experience and it adds something for people that need it. Now, we have done no deals with TrueU, just to be really clear about this. It's certainly a company that we're speaking to, but that's the sort of service that I would like to see after you do a search and you're worried about your identity. Now, I'm going to give you some caveats on that, but I've seen some comments coming in, so I'm going to check those. Marek says, identity theft. Got an email to my personal email from the CEO of the company, TM Finance. I don't list the company I work for, simply listing financing LinkedIn. The CEO was asking me, staff member, for a favor. I don't know if this conversation's sort of broken, but it sounds like someone's trying to fish information from you, as best I can tell. James says, in the US, people are having their homes sold without their permission by scammers. There is a service to let you know when that happens. Yeah, right. Well, I guess when someone turns up and kicks you out, you kind of know. Stefan's here. Oh, good. Yeah, we'll talk about the amazing stuff that we've both done this week. I think we can both take some credit for this week. So identity theft is a really good example of something that makes sense. Now, part of the problem here is that if you're an Aussie, and some of you here are, but most of you statistically are not, something like TrueU works really well. It will do you no good anywhere else in the world. Likewise, there are many services that are US only. They will only work in the US because every country, I don't know if there's any alignment across, say, the EU, but for the most part, every country, let's say every region, has its own implementations of the way credit monitoring works, credit reporting, and identity protection. There is no point us taking information about TrueU and putting it in front of anyone else. I don't think I actually explained this in the blog post here, but I will here for everyone's benefit. They're very geographically specific. Now, when I was having discussions with organizations and they're like, hey, can we get our brand like in the email next to 1Password? Well, the most obvious thing is I don't want to flood people's eyeballs with what very quickly becomes like just ads. So I don't like that idea, number one. Number two, let's say it is identity protection. And again, they're the number one class of service that this is relevant to. This blog post about product placement for other organizations, there are other segments which are complementary to both 1Password and identity theft protection, which would make sense. And we're talking to some of those people. But identity protection is one of the most obvious ones. Because it is so geographically specific, I don't want to put, just to keep picking them as an example, TrueU in an email that goes to people in the UK. It's totally irrelevant. I also don't know which one of, for example, our subscribers are in the UK. So of the 5.21 million subscribers, individual subscribers, and then hundreds of thousands of other ones doing domains, I have no idea where they're from because we don't store that data. We don't store IP address. And one of the fascinating things about the discussions I've been having with potential partners is they ask all the sorts of questions that you'd expect a marketing company or the marketing person to ask, CPMs and the demographic of the visitors and stuff. It's like, we don't know that. And we deliberately don't know that because I don't want that information. So we cannot target notification emails that are triggered by an event on our end, not by an inbound request from the user. We can't target them to different countries. We can, however, when someone comes to the website and they load, let's say, the brand new breach page we got, which explains details about the individual incident, we do have the inbound IP address. We do know which country it's from. Now, I think everyone knows that IP addresses give you some degree of geolocational specificity. We might be able to tell, for example, the state it comes from. I had an interesting discussion yesterday with the law enforcement agency about would we be able to identify a very specific part of the country where the person comes from, just purely so that we could give them resources related to their local police. So if we can drive people to the page that shows you things like your breach history or shows you details about a specific breach, and we have the inbound IP address, Then we can say, hey, you're in Australia, you get True You. You're in Canada, you get this other thing. You're in the UK, you get that other thing. And then they'll all be different services. And those organisations will have a place where it's relevant specifically to the audience who comes along. So that's the thinking. And we're running this as a bit of a formal process. I've spent a lot of time between writing code, writing a prospectus about what does it look like to have some placement. Have some placement on this service. And then over the coming weeks, we don't have any time pressure or deadlines or anything like that, but over the coming weeks, we'll try and find the right organisations to represent people in the right parts of the world, give them some good services, clearly marketed, sponsored, as you see with 1Password at the moment, and then fit it into places where there's actionable information. Right, that's it. That's what we're trying to do. All right, let me look at the comments here. Joe's here. G'day, Joe. James says, it might make sense to link to an HIB page with complimentary services in emails for pwned notices. We'll get there anyway, because one of the things we'll try and do, now that we have dedicated breach pages, when I went back and looked at all the notification emails and things we're sending, when we send a notification email to someone about a breach, there was, not only did it look a bit crusty, but there was a lot of information in there. And what I'd really like to do now, in fact, we have done this now, you'll see it live soon, is the emails are much sparser. We've got a bit of information there, obviously the name of the incident, the description, I think the number of records or something to that effect, and then a link, which is like view more. And that view more will then take you to the dedicated breach page, and then we'll have absolutely everything that we know about it, which is more than what we ever put in the emails before, because things like what was the date loaded into have I been pwned, all this sort of stuff. We'll obviously be able to put the partners there as well. But the other kind of stuff we can do in the future as well is, one of the things on our backlog is, if the service supports 2FA, I want to have a really clear indicator there that they support 2FA and then link you through to there. Same with passkeys. If they support passkeys, I want to have a really clear indicator on there and link them through there. Dropbox data breach, perfect example, and LinkedIn data breach. Both those services support 2FA and they support passkeys. Bit crusty the way LinkedIn does it. I wrote about it, another story. Point is that that's good information to put on the page. Give you another example as well. When we were at the NCSC in the UK a couple of months ago, they said what might be useful is if someone comes to have I been pwned, or let's say someone's in a data breach, they get the notification, they click on the view more information. On that page for UK visitors, could we put the NCSC logo and a link off to the NCSC's page about how to deal with data breaches? And initially when they said that, I was like, but isn't like, we're all telling them the same thing, you know, like what's the point of going to an NCSC resource? And they said, well, what they find is that if you can give information to people that is from a local source, they have much greater trust in something that they know and recognize. And it's much more relevant to them if you're in London to see, maybe Joe can comment on this, he's in the UK. Joe, if you were to see on that Have I Been Pwned page, your National Cybersecurity Centre logo, and then information for people in the UK about data breaches, would that be a more compelling proposition than some generic page? Anyway, that's the point that they've made. And we can do that if we can get people to that page and we get that inbound IP address, and we can then give them geo-specific information. So there's a lot of stuff we can do by trying to get people out of their inbox and come to the website. And that's sort of, we're not doing it in a way that I think sacrifices anything that you had before in terms of, you know, if you just want to read it in your inbox, that's fine. But we can put a lot more information on the other page. What else we got here? Steven says, worth having an option on the website to change the location if the IP country info is correct. I kind of don't think so. or if the user's using a VPN. Well, it's not just if they're using a VPN, it's if they're using a VPN and they're exiting out of another country. Have a think about what would change. And I would argue, just based on gut feel, that we're talking about a very small single-digit percentage of people. What would change is maybe they're not seeing TrueU because they're in Australia, but the VPN into the US and they're seeing some other US identity protection provider. Okay, that would be a potential problem. Maybe it's Joe and he's in the UK and he's not seeing the NCSC link, but he's seeing no link, or he's seeing a link to the Canadian Cybersecurity Centre or something like that. I don't think that they're particularly negative outcomes. And to then add in the kludge of flicking to somewhere else, I think is a little bit of a mess. One thing that I did put in the prospectus I wrote up is, not least of all, just because transparency, we will have a page that lists every partner, where are they shown, and what are the circumstances that they're shown under. So you could always go, well, I'll just go to the partner page and then I'll be able to see everyone and make up my own mind if there's something that is actually more relevant than what got put in a little box down the bottom. Other really obvious stuff that goes without saying is nobody gets to put script tags on the website. Nobody gets to put trackers on the website. If you have a look at the way 1Password is done today, it is literally just like a logo loaded up from our domain that we don't track or anything like that anyway, and some text and a link just directly to, I think it's 1Password/have-I-been-pwned. Like that. That's it, and that is the offering. And that's what I've put forward in this prospectus. And I've also said there's no shenanigans around revenue shares or profits or things like that. It's like if you want product placement like that, that's all it is. I don't want to get into that sleazy, scammy, how much of this thing can we sell kind of business. Let's see. James says, I really like that feature suggesting 2FA and passkey support. Yeah, me too. And it's a bit of a no-brainer. And we know where to get that data from already. So that's on the, I think, on the very close to now backlog, I hope. Stephen says, GS Pacific is a good win. Builds trust. Too many sites assume you're in America, and that isn't helpful. Yeah, I know. That's why we charge everything in American dollars. James, I would love websites to start putting a 2FA or passkey symbol on their login page so we know it's been added. One other way around that is in 1Password. It's like all roads lead back to 1Password. Every blog, every podcast. In 1Password, you have Watchtower. Now, if you've never seen this before, and if you're not using 1Password, start using 1Password. And then this week's sponsor, full disclosure. Let me just log back in. There is a Watchtower section. And if you go into Watchtower, you can see, look at this, number one thing, compromised websites, data from have-I-been-pwned, vulnerable passwords. There's also a section in here about, apparently there are 35 passkeys available. And if I show my items, it's going to show me every item that I have in my keychain where there is a passkey available and I do not yet have it on my account. That's really cool. So if your question is, you as probably not a normie listening to this, how do I know if a website supports passkeys? I understand what you're saying. It would be good to have some sort of indicator on the site itself. I believe, I'm not sure if 1Password can do that when you sign up, but regardless, they do have that information in Watchtower. So go and check out Watchtower and you can find all that. They also, from memory, tell you everyone that supports two-factor authentication and you don't have it enabled with the OTP in 1Password. So, I probably shouldn't say which ones support it and I haven't got it turned on, but I can see a lot of stuff here, that I set up eons and eons ago, where I don't have. Oh, where's that one? Not there. All right. I need to do a bit of housekeeping. Joe says, I'm not a normie. No, you're special. Joe, just like the rest of us. But my mum would be way more likely to trust the NCSC than the US or Oz equivalent. But she probably only knows about the NCSC because I talk about it. I had a very similar discussion with the government agency Your Wages yesterday, where they're like, look, we're actually very new and a lot of people are just not familiar with this. Joe also says in the UK, the NCSC is getting way more public exposure because all the major incidents of big brands reference working with them, as do major news outlets. So becoming known to the public. Of course, at the moment, you've got the Marks and Spencers and the Co-op and the Harrods stuff that is all in the news. So that's I know that's keeping some folks over there very busy. But hey, you're right, Joe. Like from a brand recognition perspective. So Stefan, after we actually get this stuff live, which we'll talk about in a moment, I think one of my next tasks is I'll reach back to our friends there and go, hey, so have you got that page ready for us to link through to? Because there might be some people in your area of the world that are quite interested in it at the moment. Marek clarified the earlier comment here. Yes, that was a phishing attempt against the company, but obviously they did some basic and targeted recon. All right, so moving on. I titled this, The Final Day of Coding Before Relaunch. So Stefan and I have been well and truly burning the midnight oil on this. I think, Stefan, it's probably fair to say. I'm glad that we actually, many weeks ago, set a deadline. So the deadline was we're going to go live this weekend. And I think what that will look like is we do have a staging site which is publicly accessible, which we'll make live. I think you were maybe thinking today, Stefan, but maybe that will be tomorrow now because it's now 9:30 in the evening, according to my big screen for you. So that might be a Friday Stefan, Saturday Troy thing. And then it will probably be, I set my alarm for very early on Sunday morning because it's just the quietest time. So if we do disrupt anything, it won't be too bad. But that will be a Sunday morning thing. So if you do tune in on Sunday, you should see the new live website, and you'll be the first to find any bugs, which is great. You know, this website, first of all, I think Steph and I both said many, many times, like it feels freaking awesome at the moment. We love the way this new website looks. It's not just the aesthetic of it, the way it flows. We've got a lot more sort of asynchronous behaviors. Stefan fixed some of the things that I'd written yesterday and made it all sort of nice client-side async, which is just super snappy, feels really good, looks great on all the devices. Every time I look at the old website now, I just almost feel embarrassed, but hey, it worked well for a while, so it's not too bad. I think as we're spending more time on this, there are lots of nuances that we need to try and capture, not just in the new website technically, but we've put so much effort into the usability of it. Now, a good example, and I know, Stephanie, you're working on this today, and it will probably go into your Friday too, with things like domain searches. And it sounds simple. Like if I'm searching troyhunt.com, I've got to prove that I own it. And I've got to prove I own it by either sending an email to a standard mailbox at troyhunt.com, like admin@webmaster@, or I can add a DNS entry, I can upload a TXT file, or I can set a meta tag. The UX of how we did that before was just clunky. And now it's just a really nice modal, flows really cleanly. I think there are a couple of things we can clean up in there. Stefan, I think we still need to come back to that issue about, people set up DNS, but it's not visible immediately. So they kind of need to be able to come back like the next day and check if DNS propagated. But we'll sort that out later. But there's a lot of nuances that aren't immediately visible to a lot of people. So yeah, once you verify your domain, that's not the end of it. There's then a lot of logic that has to be implemented. So for example, if the domain has 10 or less breached email addresses, which 60% of domains that people are monitoring do, then it's free, no problems. If it's more than that, then you need a subscription, and you need an appropriately sized subscription. However, you can still search for any subscription-free breaches. So if law enforcement hands us data from a malware campaign, we make sure that even if you are a multi-billion-dollar company, you can access that for free without paying us any money. So we've got to make those available. And then for the people that do have subscriptions, not only do we have to make sure that they have the right level of subscription, but we have to have a clean way of explaining to them, look, your subscription size isn't large enough. And then we go through this cycle of, well, what do you mean? Like we have less than 500 people in our organization. How can we possibly have more than 500 breached addresses? Well, because you had other people and they left and they moved on. And you go around this cycle. So we've got to explain that. And then when someone takes out a subscription, if they take it out for a year, we make sure that even if your domain gets really, really big in terms of in that year, and it gets too big for the subscription, we grandfather in the original I guess, the ability to search your entire domain until you get to renewal. So all of that, all of that logic has to come across. And in a way, it's already there because we still have a web application, which is the main thing you see, which is an ASP.NET app service. And we have all of the APIs. And all the APIs run on Azure Functions, serverless. And the web app is asynchronously calling a bunch of these from the Functions app to then display the output over here. So now our domain search actually works much more asynchronously. It's only the web app that loads, that shows any HTML, and then there's a request to the API, it brings JSON back. And that already does all of those checks I just mentioned. But then the web app needs to display the output of those checks in a user-friendly way. Is that a fair summary? Stefan, like that's all the sorts of stuff we've got to get right on that. Then, of course, we've got lots of new interfaces that just didn't exist before. We've got a dashboard. Dashboard looks epic now. Everybody gets a dashboard. But what that means is that even if you've never used the service before, you effectively have a dashboard by virtue of the fact that you've been in a data breach. So now you need to be able to go and put your email address in, sign into the dashboard, and it will show you your data breaches. It'll show you access to stealer logs, your personal email address, and there's a business section. That's where you go through and you set up the domains, and that's where you go and get subscriptions and so on. And then we've got all the opt-out stuff from before. That still needs to be there. And we still need the notification stuff. But then if you're in your dashboard and you've already verified your email address and you want to unsubscribe from notifications, we should just be able to toggle that thing on and off, which is easy. You had a bug too, Stefan. So when I just have so many of them, when I find one of yours, like I just feel kind of good. If you've never used the service before and you go to the dashboard and you sign in and your email address is there, but it's not in the notification users table, and then you turn on notifications, the problem was that you had no record to enable. Anyway, I fixed it. I moved more stuff out of Entity Framework into Sprox, which I know makes you really, really happy. So I did more of that yesterday. Yeah, just lots and lots of little idiosyncrasies. And we've been doing just loads and loads of testing. And then, of course, there's all the Stripe integration stuff as well, which for the most part is a joy to work with. But we have to make sure that all the new stuff we built works with Stripe. And testing that, it's not that it's non-trivial, but it's much of what we've built now. Well, everything that we've built now is better. There's not a single thing I can think of that has gone backwards. Everything has either been at worst just as good or way, way, way better. But the complexity of it has grown. So I mentioned Stripe. We want to do callbacks. Well, we have been doing callbacks for years. And the way we need to test callbacks is Stripe has a CLI. And you can run this CLI and then subscribe endpoints on your local dev system for callbacks, because we need to do things like when a subscription is paid, there's a callback from Stripe to have I been pwned, which says the subscription's paid, and then we enable the API key, for example, and have I been pwned. Now, in order for us to test that, we need to run the CLI, and you need to run a different one for each endpoint that you're listening to, because we've got different events that trigger callbacks. Run that CLI locally, so that you can get the callbacks and then register those endpoints locally so that you can get the callbacks so that you can then see that your code works, which is actually kind of cool because it's effectively Stripe calling into your local dev environment. It's just proxied, reverse proxied, I guess, for our CLI. So there's that. We've done a lot of TypeScript now. Stefan's gone pretty nuts on TypeScript. The TypeScript we need to make sure compiles into JavaScript for all the front end. We've got a lot of Sass now, so we had to make sure that when there are changes to the Sass that compiled into CSS, and there's a different process for that too. And you end up with so many moving parts that honestly, I hate to admit it, but I've often just gone back to previous questions I've asked ChatGPT to figure out how the hell I did it. So it's, yeah. And I've been waking up at like 4 o'clock every morning because I just cannot sleep because I've got so much on my mind with this. So the point is that we're on the very, very home stretch now. I think what's not working completely, Stefan, have you done the API key provisioning yet? I mean, all the code is there. We're just tying it into the new UI. And I think a couple of nuances with the domain search. I feel like that's the only stuff, which we can hopefully get done during your Friday. And then I'm going to go through and just find all the times where the casing on the text isn't right or the font has got a different class on it than it should have. And then we'll pretty much be right. We'll have bugs. I've literally got a heading in the draft blog post. We will have bugs. And we're going to have bugs just because there's a lot of code. I'd be very surprised if we have bugs of any severity insofar as they give people access to things that they shouldn't. We've been ultra cautious around that. I think the bugs that we're most likely to have is there'll be an unhandled exception somewhere because we were expecting something that didn't come through, or we will definitely have little UX bugs. I mean, I pushed one change this morning where I just found there was a rogue semicolon because after I was embedding a partial view in the MVC markup, for some reason I just had a semicolon at the end of it. And I was sitting there 4 o'clock this morning with my iPad just looking at the site going, no, that shouldn't be there. So that will be there. And we obviously really like feedback from folks as well. The good stuff, the bad stuff. We will iterate on this very quickly, particularly early next week. It'll still change a lot. James says, anyone ever look for an answer on how to do something and forget you found and answered it for someone else? Happens to me on an ATA adapter. Yes, I have often found my own Stack Overflow answers. I saw a stat from Mark Gravel. I don't think he's with Stack Overflow anymore. It was in the past. I saw this stat yesterday about the questions asked on Stack Overflow over time. It's a bell curve. It's gone down to, because AI, I assume. So, Wayne, why is Sunday release date? Sounds like you need a little more time. Well, first of all, we need to release on a weekend. We need to do that because it's the lowest volume of traffic. Sunday morning, my time is the best time there. As early as possible, so Stefan gets some number of hours in his Saturday evening. We have travel schedules and other commitments as well coming up, which we're going to make it hard if we pushed it back later. And also, we set this many, many weeks ago. And it's even things like we have to update terms and conditions. So this is something, Stefan, you managed to avoid. But like yesterday, we were on a Teams meeting with the lawyers about what are the things that need to change in the T's and C's. Not just because of the relaunch, but because of things like we now have Stealer logs, which weren't there when the original T's and C's were written. And the expectation we've put on everyone is to have this drop dead date. Now, to be clear, James, if we got to the end of the day today and we went, we cannot push this out and be confident that we're not going to have bugs of a serious nature, we just wouldn't do it. Equally, we will never get to the point where it's like, we're going to push this out and there will be no bugs. like there will be. But this is setting a deadline is important. If you don't have a deadline, stuff will just go on forever. And I think where we're at today, I suspect Stefan will agree with me. I think we're pretty confident that when we push this out on the weekend, it will be fine. Now, Joe says Mark works for Microsoft now, Mark Gravel. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. He's a very, very smart guy too. So yeah, good on him. Does he still work for Microsoft after this week? Because apparently a lot of people don't. That's been that's big companies being big companies. Let's talk about the fun stuff. Merch. Now, this is going to be our exclusive, I guess it's an exclusive soft launch. I'm going to drop this URL into the chat. Then everyone can go and see the merch store. merch.haveibeenpwned.com. This, why did we do this? We've had lots of people go, hey, can I get a t-shirt or something like that? I said, we don't have t-shirts. It's not really what we do. And Charlotte in particular was really keen to do merch. She's like, people would love to have t-shirts and things like that. Richard's here. Good on, mate. So she was really, really keen on this idea. And long story short, like literally, I think last weekend, we ended up going, look, let's just go and find somewhere. So she went out, she did the research. She managed to find Teespring. Now, this is somewhat ironic because Teespring is already in Have I Been Pwned. They have been pwned. We are now using them for our merch store. And she's gone on a bit of a bender, so to speak, just going out there creating merch. Now, if you're listening to this in the car later on, and you have to wait till you get home, we've got hoodies on there. We've got We've got pwned sandals. I really want some thongs. And yes, I know that sounds weird. That's part of the reason why I want them, because people lose their shit over the fact that we're selling thongs that would be branded Have I Been Pwned. They're the ones that go on your feet. If there's the other kind as well, maybe we'll put that on there just for fun. Got hats, got t-shirts, got singlets, the Gold Coast Protocol tank top. I like that. I've got to give Charlotte some more PNGs of different colors so she can do a few other things. There's a mouse mat there. There's some mugs there. There's a pwned tote bag. There's a pwned baby onesie. I want to, when I have time, play with this more and do not just the pwned onesie, but the pooed onesie or something like that as well. I think we can have a lot of fun with this. What I will caveat with this is that everything in there we have marked up from cost price. And we have marked everything up by 1 cent from cost price, because Teespring won't let you just sell it at cost price. We don't make money out of this. This is not a money-making exercise. The whole idea is to make this stuff as broadly available to people as is possible. So there is a markup because we have to. We by no means make any money out of it. So what it means is the prices for things like the premium V-neck tee, this is the Troy-Fit Pwned edition, is $22.02 American cents. So 22 bucks seems to be okay for that. Because we've only set this up last weekend, we don't actually know what they're like. I think they're going to be okay. Charlotte's going to finish all of this up over the weekend so that when we go live on Monday, that will sort of be the proper launch of it. We'll go and order a bunch of stuff, and if anything's not good, well, then we'll take it off. But I think it's actually going to be pretty cool, because there's stuff like, some of these are actually embroidered logos as well. They're not just like a printed transfer. Where's the embroidered one? Did she put that on there? Embroidered. I'm sure there's an embroidered on there. Oh, here we go. Yeah, the hoodie. The embroidered soft wash hoodie is $38.75 American cents. There's the Pwned Tracky Dacks. They're $38.30. I might have to get some of those myself. Oh, quite neat. So yeah, that's what we've done. It's just it's I don't know why so much time went on this. It's fun. It's meant to be a bit of fun. I think we can actually come up with much more fun names. If you think of anything, then please let us know. If you think of anything in terms of either merch that Teespring make available that we can put on there, thongs of either kind, I'm not sure what they actually do, but if they did, we'd do that. If you can think of any good names, if you can think of any colors or things that we're missing, please let us know. Richard needs a t-shirt. I'll definitely get you a t-shirt, mate. That's a done deal. And yeah, we'll see. I don't even know if we can figure out like how many people actually buy stuff off there or not. It's not actually clear to me. I guess we'll work it out. So yeah, that's what we did. There's a merch store. The new website literally has a link now through to merch. We still have the challenge coin on the backlog too. So oh, look, Wayne's ordered a tea. Awesome. Well, thank you, mate. I'll go and actually have a look after this and see if we can figure out what people have ordered. We're still doing stickers on Sticker Mule. We did look at doing stickers here, so there was just one place, but frankly, they just looked nowhere near as good as Sticker Mule. And I think the main reason is that after you did the sticker, they had to have like a white vinyl section around the outside that just made it look crap. The ones on Sticker Mule, of which 10,000 just arrived yesterday. I've got 2 massive boxes of packs like this, but the Sticker Mule ones do look really neat. I think Joe's got one of those on his, hopefully on your laptop or somewhere prominent now after seeing you in Oxford the other day. Steven says, when you make $1 of profit, that's 100 sales. Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the way we should measure it. I think some things might have been, like, don't tell anyone, but I think some things might have had to be marked up 2 cents. But yeah, so maybe the logic isn't that simple, but there must be a way of tracking that. Anyway, come up with some good ideas. I had loads. In fact, I've had a list. It's like I was joking with you yesterday, Stefan. I have so many lists in different places. I'm sure somewhere in Have I Been Pwned, one of my Have I Been Pwned lists, didn't I have like a merch list? Or was it swag? Maybe I called it swag. I also need a list to remember what terms I use for different things. Find a notebooks, swag. Oh, here you go, swag and merch. Have I been pwned? Ah, that's what I'd put in there. We're going to do breach towels, not beach towels, breach towels. So if we can, I'll ask Charlotte actually, if we can find towels on Teespring, we'll make sure that we have some breach towels ready to go. Joe says stickers are awesome. I have the old and new logos next to each other. You know, I was almost going to throw, I don't have many of the old ones left, but I was almost going to throw them out the other day. And I was like, no, I think we'll keep that. That will be a reminder. Richard says tracky dacks. They're what you wear with your thongs, mate. Look it up. It'll be fine. Tracksuit pants. They're soft jogging pants, lounging pants. Joe says, I've avoided counting up just how many stickers you gave me. Yeah, I think I gave you a good solid couple of packs, didn't I? Yeah, have I got swag? Stephen says. Swagged and pwned. Yeah, it's Oz slang. Sorry. Okay, folks. Well, look, I'm going to round it out there because we do have code to go and write and finish when I do this next week. Hopefully, the update will be it's all launched. We had a couple little bits and pieces here and there, nothing major. It's fine. And we have made many cents from the merch store as well, which would be really nice. So, yeah, look, thanks for listening. We'll see you in a week with a new site. See you, folks.